Hello and welcome to World Business Report. I'm Alice Baxter. Europe faces a psychological breakup. Now, with sluggish growth in Europe and the United States, economists are looking to China to pull the global economy out of the doldrums. And the latest economic report from China is encouraging. Officials from the G20 group of nations will decide this week whether to call an emergency conference on food prices. The cost of corn, wheat and soya has soared over the last 4 months. It's as a result of the droughts in the United States and also in Russia. Well, all this piles the pressure on Prime Minister Mario Monti, who's trying to bring the government's finances under control and convince financial markets that the country can continue to finance its $2 trillion debt without an external bailout. Well, Professor John Wise is from the European School of Economics in Rome, and he joins me now via Skype. Many thanks for being with us this morning. So, will they, won't they? Will Italy have to go for a full bailout? We heard on Friday from Prime Minister Rajoy that Spain's considering it. Has Italy moved its position at all?
Well, Italy is...
Your boss, Richard Branson, has been quoted in the past as saying that BA has a monopoly on domestic flying ever since the takeover of BMI. So is that why Virgin's decided to suddenly foray into the domestic flying market?
Yes, that's the central point.
This isn't simply a response from Virgin to it losing the West Coast mainline franchise to First Group, which was announced last week.
No, this is about keeping a very important part of the UK connected to the rest of the world.
Many analysts calling this the most exciting ECB market meeting to happen in a long time. Obviously, expectations running very high following Mario Draghi's comments last week, that subsequent rally on the market. Do you think that expectations have almost been ramped up too high?
Well, I certainly think there's a danger that that will be announced today.
OK, well, let's also pick through some of the other options open to the bank today. Another cut of interest rates, is that likely?
No, we don't think that.
Should we talk about food prices? This is something you're following closely on World Business Reports.
Yeah, it is. The impact that the weather that we've seen over the course of the year, whether it's drought, whether it's tropical storm at the moment, the impact that it's having generally not only on markets, etc., but also on food prices. And here, the conclusion seems to be from The Guardian that we all might have to go vegetarian. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, this makes me laugh because I know David is a big fan of steak.
Just get the impression there's not a lot of balance here. But there we are.
What is interesting is, as you were saying, Naga, and as you were saying, David, that this is an ongoing story, isn't it? All this negativity surrounding banks. And apparently, according to the Daily Telegraph, it's having an impact on their recruitment process, that banks are now having to pay more to attract top graduates. I find that difficult to believe somehow.
There is a stigma. There's no question of any doubt about it.
We're now looking at Iran and Iranian citizens as you're innocent until proven guilty, and I think that's really where the problems occur. Was
it a surprise at all that 4 more European banks have come under this level of scrutiny?
It was actually a very big surprise.
Isn't it? It was a wonderfully theatrical performance, wasn't it? And they describe it as a sermon in The Independent, and it really was that, wasn't it?
It was. This is all drama. He's playing to the television.
Manchester United is due to set the price for its shares later on Thursday. The club is selling a 10% stake, which could raise as much as $330 million. But some are saying that Manchester United is being overvalued, particularly as it has hefty debts and is facing competition from rivals with very deep pockets. Well, Sean Hamill is a lecturer at the Birkbeck Sports Business Centre, and he joins me now. Many thanks for being here. So that proposed price tag of $330 million, that will make it the most expensive sports franchise in the world, worth almost double that of Real Madrid. Is it worth that much?
Well, I don't think it is at the moment, no. Any difference between then and now?
And you talked about the structural problems of this sale. The Glazer family will still retain 99% of voting control, and there's not going to be a dividend for shareholders as well. Are they really relying on the emotional appeal, do you think, of people wanting to own a little bit of Man U?
I think there's 2 things.
Actually, some bad economic data coming out of Singapore. Its economy actually shrank by 1.1% in the second quarter, and that actually came as a surprise to many analysts who had been expecting modest growth. Okay, let's get a quick flash of the markets now, and as we can see in Asia, bourses have advanced. Japanese stocks particularly gained for a second day, with the Nikkei reaching a 3-week high on positive earning reports, and that's amid optimism that Germany will support the ECB bank's bond buying plan for Italy and Spain.
Welcome to BBC World News. I'm Conrad Dumont.
And I'm Alice Baxter. Coming up later in World Business Report. Now, things were starting to look up, weren't they? The Eurozone's output stabilised in the first quarter, but a decline in the second now puts us firmly back on the course for recession if output in the current third quarter also shrinks. So what do you think? Is recession likely?
They're obviously much worse than people had expected up to a couple of months ago.
And let's talk about the possible remedies. What actions can the ECB take come September? Or is this purely about confidence?
This is purely about confidence.
Let's talk a little bit more about this article in Der Spiegel and Monti's comments, this imminent potential breakup of the Eurozone crisis and the debate around the central issue of whether the ECB should be allowed to buy up the bonds of indebted countries in order to reduce their borrowing costs, and Germany's insistence that it's not the job of the bank to bail out governments. Where's the middle ground on this?
There's probably some room for compromise.
So what do you make of these figures that are just out? France, zero growth. Germany up by 0.3%, so not that much to get excited about. Was it what you were expecting?
Well, they are slightly better than expected. So France, effectively, as you said, flat.
Running a pretty efficient business has really helped us perform.
Well, as you say, America is still your biggest market, but Europe is second. And with US growth sluggish, parts of Europe teetering on recession, as we talk about day in, day out. Are you happy with the way politicians on both sides of the Atlantic are working to try and boost the global economy?
You know, I think there's a limit to how much politicians can do.
My colleague Alice Baxter has been looking into the background of the story. Alice.
Yeah, that's right, Comla. Thanks. Shares in British banking group Standard Chartered are down sharply in Hong Kong trading, some 7.5% after accusations by New York's financial regulator that it illegally schemed with Iran to evade sanctions for nearly a decade. Well, we can actually talk live to Shilpa now, who's outside the Manasar plant for us. Shilpa, you were talking to us there earlier about dropping production levels, the fact that only a skeleton shift is going to be working at the plant today. But could you just remind us on the background of all of this? Why did the workers go on strike in the first place? Why the violence?
That police are actually still investigating the cause.
The rather unsavoury final story that we have this out from the Mirror about the record amount of rainfall that we've had in the country. You know, it has been pretty grisly, hasn't it? Which has led to not only us all being pretty soggy all the time, but this invasion of giant slugs and snails.
They say that in London, you're never more than 4 feet away from a rat, although in the city, you're probably a lot closer.
And many thanks to Ralph Silver for that. OK, that's all from me and from Comla. Do stay with us.